Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Catching Up with Brad and the Boys. I'm your host, David Trinko, once again, alongside Lincoln Retzloff, my co-host. And then it couldn't be Brad and the Boys without Brad Schlossman, Grand Forks hero, longtime beat writer for UND hockey, and professor at UND. So it's been a little while since we last catch up. It's been about a little over a month now. We last spoke when UND had just had their scrimmage. They have now started the season. They played the Icebreaker tournament against Wisconsin, and I'm blanking
Army,
on the first Army. That's right. And
Bemidji.
then they played um, Minnesota State the following weekend, Minnesota at home, and then at BU. Well, yeah, they played Minnesota State or Minnesota, and then Minnesota State, and then BU. Sorry. So we'll do a little recap of the whole first road series since it was all of us here made a trip out to Boston. Lincoln and I will kind of start here since Brad Schloss turned not only is he turning into a professor this year, he's also turning into an amateur travel advisor as well. Um we asked Brad what we should do since he's had a little experience going to Boston. He shared some good tips, good places to go. We toured Fenway, that was really cool. Got an opportunity to do that, sit on the Green Monster. Went to the bleacher bar. That was in the Green Monster or in the infield wall or the outfield wall. Sorry, not infield. There's no infield wall. And Lincoln, what was some of your favorite parts of the trip?
Yeah, I think it was just being in the big city overall and going to a place that's, you learn so much about it in school. Like you hear about the Boston Massacre, Battle of Bunker Hill, and it's kind of surreal just getting to actually go and see
Mm-hmm.
all of it and knowing that that's kind of where our country started and where the roots
Mm-hmm.
are planted. So I just thought it was a really cool city to visit. 10 out of
Mm-hmm.
10 would recommend for anyone that hasn't gone.
Yeah, history runs deep there. It was a lot of fun seeing all the places. We went to the Old State House where the Boston Massacre happened, and went to the Bunker Hill, or isn't it called something else? Like the battle is called Bunker Hill, but I'm pretty sure the hill is called something else. Went to Warren Tavern where George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and Paul Revere all used to drink. And then we also went to the Paul Revere statue and the Old North Church. And then also TD Garden. Didn't get to go in for a game or anything, but it's like a mall, subway station, and a stadium all
Yeah,
put
that was
together.
cool.
Very interesting. If you do get to Boston and you don't have a car, the subway lines do take some time to get through, and they are very old and outdated. So it's a little bit of a rough ride sometimes. But with that being said, thank you, Brad, for sharing all those spots. What are some of your favorite spots? What did you do in Boston while you were there?
Well, a lot of what you mentioned, I think. I think going to Bleacher Bar is pretty cool for those that don't know. That's
Yeah.
right inside the center field wall. And if you ever look at a picture of Fenway and see center field, you'll see like a cage, and that
Mm-hmm.
cage is essentially protecting the glass where you can sit. And I just think that's a really fun place
Oh yeah.
whenever I get in. I like going there and I know some other UND fans went over there, and I think everyone that's kind of a unanimous great place to go. So that was one place, and walked around a little bit down on the north end. Also a fun place to walk around and um, see the history. It's
Yeah.
surreal seeing places that Paul Revere used to have cold ones at that are still there. So um, but yeah, it's a great city for a lot of different reasons.
For sure. UND played two games there, a weekend series. You mentioned in a couple of your articles that you published that UND had a curse in Boston. They hadn't won a game since the 90s, 1990 specifically. Can you kind of go through a little bit about what that little curse and
Yeah.
spiel for UND?
Yeah, and that's against BU.
Yep.
They did play Harvard there and beat them. They have beaten Northeastern. I haven't even looked at BC. They have beaten BU in Worcester, but inside the city of Boston, it had been yeah, it kind of felt like a curse because it's not like UND was playing bad in these games.
Hmm.
There was the game they outshot them. what was it, like 58-30, and they lost it. I mean, a lot of these
Ridiculous.
games they
Yeah.
were shooting them by double digits or 20, 30 shots, and they just could not find a way to win. And it kind of felt like that on Friday. I thought
Yeah.
UND played
Yeah.
really well for the vast majority of that game, and they end up losing. And I was just thinking, this is exactly, I've written this story before. Like every time they play BU, it's kind of been the same story. They've played well enough to win. They don't. Um, but obviously they came back
Yeah.
Saturday and ended that with another strong performance overall.
Yeah. UND, when we were there watching, it was just like they'd get great opportunities, great shots. And going into that series, we weren't really sure how the BU's goalie was going to perform because BU, going into the season was, I mean, it was your preseason number one. It was a team everyone was had to watch out for, is still going to watch out for. And their goalie, it seemed like, struggled the first couple weeks and was a little bit of a piece of why BU had struggled against some other teams. And I didn't really think he was going to play that well. I was really surprised with how well he played, especially on Friday night. He made a lot of big saves. He had a lot of good shots, a lot of good opportunities. And I wouldn't say it seemed like UND took shots, and I don't know. I wouldn't say they took bad shots, but he was just somehow getting in the way of everything, and they couldn't get opportunities to go. The shots, like you said, were lopsided. It was 34-20 in favor of UND on Friday. It just seemed it was frustrating, and I could tell it was frustrating for the players. What did you think, Link, on Friday?
Yeah, I think one of the themes, we got out right away. We scored. I think that's the big thing you got to do. You got to get on the board. I don't know if you said this, Brad, or even Brad Barry said it, but you got to control, maybe it was Dane Jackson, control the first 10 minutes of the game. And then it's just kind of, it'll
I
all
think
go your way.
Schloss
And
said that.
yeah. And
Hmm.
I thought UND did a pretty good job overall, both nights of playing well enough to where they were in a position to win. But on
Hmm.
Friday, we kind of saw special teams kind of killed them. You
Hmm.
know, you can't when Macklin Celebrini and Lane Hudson are at the on the blue line passing back and forth and shooting, they're gonna score. And it didn't help that we didn't get any power play goals on Friday either to kind of counteract that. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, like we said, we outshot them. I personally thought we kind of outplayed them, but we just got
Hmm.
unlucky.
Yeah, it was a weekend. UND. Obviously, you go in every weekend, or you could say every at the end of every weekend that you could have had both games. That's something anyone can say. Um, UND obviously played way better, or they were able to get way more through on Saturday. But Lane Hudson creating a lot of frustration against that UND squad. It was tough to watch. I mean, when you're there watching and you got guys like Lane Hudson and Macklin Celebrini out there. Lane Hudson's number 20, I believe, is he not?
Yeah.
You're just watching and you're just like, please don't give it to number 20. Or if it's getting on the stick of number 20 or number 71, please get it off his like Lincoln when we were there watching, you're just like, oh no, man. Like you're just as soon as number 71 gets the puck, you're getting nervous. He's the guy you got to watch out for. Um, I don't know. In terms of the score sheet, when you look at it, it looks like they did a pretty decent job of getting on the stick of Macklin Sobrini and shutting down some opportunities. He did still get on the score sheet a few times, but Lane Hudson they extremely struggled with. Lane Hudson was stellar. He had 4 goals on the weekend. Pretty sure he had an assist here or there. I don't know the exact stat line, but you get it. Lane Hudson had a terrific weekend. Um, Brad, who do you think really shined for both teams this weekend?
Well, I thought it was very obvious when Celebrini was on the ice. I
Hmm.
thought, whenever BU was pressuring, you could pretty much guarantee 71 was out there. Um, I thought when he was off the ice and when Hudson was off, they were not as good. And
Hmm.
UND dictated quite a bit. So, I mean, we knew before the season started, those are two very, very likely top 10 Hobey finalists. Um, I think
Hmm.
based on what we saw this weekend, they are still very, very likely top 10 Hobey finalists. They're both really good. So, those were two of the guys that jumped out to me on that side of things. And UND side, I thought Ben Strinden getting a couple goals
Oh yeah.
is pretty big. He had scored on some nice shots. He was definitely a standout. There are quite a few, I thought, actually. Up front, they put together the Gaber, McLaughlin, and Blake line again.
Yeah, Blake.
They were together quite a bit last year. Maybe not quite a bit, but they were together at times last year. And on Saturday, that line scored. And that was a big part of the game. There were just a lot of little contributions too. The last one I would say is the game goes to 3-on-3 Saturday, and BU rolls out Macklin Celebrini and Lane Hudson, which theoretically two of the really explosive players on 3-on-3. UND has some really good players and really skilled players where 3-on-3 should
be good. I feel like they're deeper 3-on-3.
The BU probably, they might be one of the only teams that can one up them on pure skill. And so when it goes there, you were thinking this initial draw is absolutely massive because then UND gets the puck, BU doesn't get it right away, and maybe Hudson and Celebrini's first shift is spent defending, and they don't have the puck. And by the time they get it, they might have to come off. So the first face-off you knew was going to be absolutely vital, and it was. Cameron Berg wins it, immediately goes to the bench. They did that with Mark Senden last year. If you remember, twice he goes out there, wins the draw, goes to the bench, and UND scored. That's the same thing that happened here. He wins the draw, goes to the bench. McLaughlin comes out, and UND scores before BU can possess the puck. So, that probably doesn't show up much on the score sheet, but huge play by Cam Berg to win that faceoff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you were talking about that line with Blake Gaber and McLaughlin, how they were playing together last year. And we saw last year how, obviously you have freshmen on the ice, they're going to make mistakes. McLaughlin, I thought this year especially, has just looked so much better. He's really rounded out a lot of his game. I thought he's been looking way better, and I trust him with the puck way more. He's making way more smart decisions, it seems like. I think he's rounded out his game, and that line, I feel like last year when it looked like they were more of a defensive liability, I feel like that's a more complete line now, and it could be a potential threat down the stretch if they keep them together. Obviously, you have a lot of talent, so you can mix it up if you want, especially if guys get hurt here and there. If it does happen, it probably will happen. You never know what the lines are going to be, but that line seemed a lot better than it was at times, defensively anyway, last year. I thought that they played really well. And that overtime goal was absolutely filthy.
Yeah.
That was something great. How did it even go in? He did a backhand shot, and then how did it deflect in? I wasn't really sure how it went in.
It's tough to see.
Yeah. A lot of traffic there in front. And the Boston University announcers were not very enthusiastic about anything, it sounded like. But with that, we will go into, a little something. Andrew Armacross made the trip out to Boston. I'm not sure if you saw that, Brad. He was on a little scooter. I don't know if you know why he's in a scooter, but
pickleball injury.
Yeah, pickleball injury. I was like,
Yeah.
well, why are you not playing Brad? And he's like, Brad plays? I was like, heck yeah, Brad plays. We got to schedule that. He's like, well, I'm out on IR right now, so we'll have to reschedule. Hopefully that becomes something in the future. I thought that was funny. Are there any teams right now, Brad, that I don't know, that not necessarily just the NCHC, but in all college hockey realm, that teams that should have been good or looked good going into the season that have been playing bad or haven't been meeting expectations lately that might be looking to pick something up or pick it up here?
Well, I think there's a number of teams that are off to slow starts. I think you look at the CCHA, and I had Northern Michigan winning that league, and they're 1-6-1 right now. Everyone else seemed to
I was
have
surprised with them too, yeah.
Michigan
Sorry.
Tech winning that league, and they've
Yep.
won 2 of their 9 games so far, I believe. So those 2 teams up on the UP are struggling to start the year, and the third UP team is one of the surprises. Lake Superior State is the only team in the CCHA with a winning record right now,
Oh
and
man.
they're off to a good start. So that those are a couple that stand out. I think Clarkson could be better than their record shows right now. Merrimack, I think, was a popular pick at the start of the year, and they've been average. I don't think they've been bad, but they maybe haven't been as good as they had hoped to be.
BU had a slow start. They rounded it out though. Looks like.
Yeah. I mean,
Starting.
it's just a couple games there.
Mm-hmm.
But they obviously look like they're all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
So we'll go into teams that are exceeding expectations. I think one that I don't think a lot of people are seeing that would be as good that they are is Wisconsin. I mean, they're emerging as a pretty
Yeah.
big powerhouse right now. What are your thoughts on them right now?
Yeah, I had them ranked in the preseason, my preseason poll. I thought they had a chance to be good. I didn't think they'd be quite this good,
Yeah, I
but
don't think
I
anybody
did
did.
think they had a chance to. When you looked at the pieces they had coming back, they had some pretty good guys. Like Tony left him with some pretty good players. And when you looked at the recruiting class coming in, pretty good. You got Quinn Finley, Pelota on D, a bunch of impact guys. And then Hastings takes, arguably his 3 best players from Minnesota State and brings them over too. So you already
Right.
had some pieces there. And then the roster was rounded out with some freshmen and these transfers. And I did think they had a chance to be pretty good this year. My biggest surprise is New Hampshire so far. They keep
Yeah.
beating ranked teams. I think I had them 9th or 10th in that league, and they are way ahead of where I thought they would be.
Mm-hmm.
Providence has been better than I thought they would be too. I
Yeah.
thought Providence had a chance to be solid, but they've been way better even than I thought than I had at the start. And then the last one I will throw out is the unheralded programs. Augustana is way better than I thought they'd
Yeah.
be already.
Mm-hmm.
They're good.
St. Thomas looks good. Alaska
Mm-hmm.
Anchorage has been way better than I thought they'd be. Robert Morris coming back from a 2-year hiatus. There's a lot of teams that you probably penciled in for 5 wins this year that are almost there at the end of the first month. So
Right.
a lot of those teams I think have really surprised me.
Yeah, Wisconsin.
So,
Sorry, go ahead, Lynx.
I was gonna say, so Brad, do you think that's a lot of that has to do with the transfer portal there? Is that's because I know Augustana brought in a ton of guys, and do you think that's something that a trend we're gonna see to where the newer teams, maybe say a new team comes in the future, they're gonna come in and be hitting right out the gate, or do you think it might level off where we're gonna see more of a slow progression from new teams joining instead of these fast starts?
I'll say both. The transfer portal's there and it's going to help teams. The way it's going to change is if you think about the player pool for a 4-year span, the player pool is going to be larger than it's ever been because everybody's got 5 years of eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
So now all of a sudden you have more eligible players for each year than you normally would. So there are far more Division I hockey players of their talent caliber right now who are not even in Division I, just because the pool is large with that COVID year. So I think that is playing a big role. This is probably the best time ever to come in and start a program. In 2 years, when that COVID year goes down, the pool size of players will shrink, and you probably can't take quite as high end of a player. So, but the portal will still be there. It allows new programs to like balance their classes right away. You don't have to go out and get 20 freshmen. You can get some older players and balance them out a little bit. So I think it will
Mhm.
help. But I think the COVID fifth year on top of the transfer portal
Mhm.
it's just a golden time right now to try to start, because there's so many players who are available that are good.
The bottleneck is still essentially rounding itself
Yes.
out from, yeah.
Yeah, and there will be another year of that. And next summer, the
Mhm.
portal will be full again. There will be, over 200 guys in there, I would guess, and teams are going to be able to pick it up. And then the year after that, it's going to drop significantly. So
Talk about Wisconsin and how they're we're the only UND is still the only team that has beat them thus far in this season, which is going to be great for pairwise for UND when that eventually does become a factor. When do they start actually using pairwise? When a little bit more when conference starts up, I assume. Is there like an
I
official week
think,
or
yeah, Adam Woden of College Hockey News
yeah,
wrote a few years ago. He went back and looked at like the pairwise on Thanksgiving weekend, and how many of those teams made the tournament. And it was actually quite high. Like if you're in the top 16 at Thanksgiving, it it really looked similar at the end of the year. Of course, there's a few teams that move up and a couple that move down, but it was nothing like um staggering. So originally I was always after Christmas you look at the pairwise. But Adam's article to me was like, actually you can look at Thanksgiving, and I think it is a legit formula by Thanksgiving. But right now the Ivies have only played, some of them have played like
yeah,
2 or 3 games, so you
Mhm.
need a little bit larger sample size but um,
starting to
we're
formulate here.
it's starting to formulate. We're getting close to Thanksgiving, and so am I going to like sit there and look at it every night?
No,
No, because there's still 3 or 4 months until selection time. But I'll peek at it. I'll maybe see what trends are going, but I won't be putting it in my stories or anything yet.
right. So we'll move on to one of our favorite segments here. One of my personal favorites anyway. And that's Brad's radar. Um so we'll do the kind of like we'll just do the month of November since we don't really know again when the next episode will be. It'll be in at least a month. So we could do a player to watch for UND, and then we'll also do maybe another player or maybe even a few if you do have a couple in mind in college hockey realm, the whole world for college hockey.
Yeah, UND's got they're playing Duluth, Miami, Bemidji State, Denver, a big stretch.
Right.
Uh, Player to watch. Oh, the one guy, when you look at the statistics and that where his stats just don't match up with how well he's played, which makes you think he's going to pop a couple big games, I think is Jaden Perron. He has 4 goals right now, no assists. To me, his, I think he's going to be a guy that his point total is going to come up quite a bit, because I think he's played better than his point total
Yeah.
shows. If I were to have a runner up on UND, it would probably be Cameron Berg. I think he also is going to um,
Right.
score a little bit more than he has.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Jaden Perron, he's definitely really visible out there. He makes great plays, makes great passes. I mean, you said it before, he's a great playmaker. He can make those amazing passes, whether it's at the front of the net for a backdoor play. But he seemingly can't always find himself on the score sheet. But he did have an amazing shot on Saturday night for a goal. I believe it was at
Mm-hmm.
BU. And it seemed like every single goal on that Saturday night, there was a couple were just absolute rippers. Like Ben Strinden had a great shot. Reese Gaber had an amazing laser on that. I believe it was the first goal we had right up by the ear of Karan. And that was just, they had some absolutely amazing shots there. So Jane Perron, 4 goals, no assists yet. You look, then you'd think he'd have some assists just by the way he's passing. But like you said, He seems like he's not finding himself on the score sheet, and he's probably due for a couple assists or a couple more points here in the next coming games. But did you have anybody nationally?
You know, this is a name that like won't really appear nationally necessarily in buzz, but the one guy like I've seen so far, I would say in the first month where I was like, whoa, I had no idea he was this good, was Evan Murr. He was a defenseman for Minnesota State. He has no goals, 3 assists in 6 games. You know, if you look at who Minnesota State played in the first month, you know, St. Cloud State, UMass, North Dakota, they've played some really tough opponents. They're going to get into a conference schedule here, and I just thought he was really good. I was so impressed with him. When before the weekend started, I saw his minutes and how much they were playing him, and I'm like, wow, they are really playing this freshman a lot. And one of his first shifts, he made a big shoulder fake and got a guy out of the lane. And I'm like, okay, there's something there. And it seemed like the one guy I constantly noticed was number 10. So I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be a big factor in the CCHA this year. And nobody's really talking about him. I never hear his name anywhere. So Evan Murr is my guy to watch.
Evan Murr. So he's a freshman at Minnesota State, correct?
Yep. Freshman D-man, played in the USHL last year. Not overly big, but man, I just really impressed with him. I could throw out some other names that everyone knows, like a Will Smith from Boston College or one of those guys, but that's my under the radar guy. Watch out for Evan Murr. I think he's going to have a great college career based on what I saw in the Ralph.
Brad's radar, Evan Murr, week 2 or month or episode 2. Keep your eye out. We'll do way too early Hobey standouts. Lincoln, do you have a guy in mind right now, or you need a second here? You don't have to do a whole top 3 like we did last episode.
I'm just gonna go.
If you have
I'm
a guy
going
to add in, or
I'm going to Celebrini still. We saw how good he is, and he's up there in points, so I'm not changing that. I'm just gonna stick with Celebrini. He seems like the safe pick right now.
Yeah, looking at the stats here, I would say, I mean Luke or Lane Hudson had a great weekend. 4 goals on a weekend for a defenseman is pretty good. He's only got 9 points so far this season, unfortunately, which is still a lot. I mean, you got a lot of time left. You know, you don't have to have a massive points right now. It helps. If you're a guy like Massimo Rizzo, who's got 17 right now, and it's only been like 4 weekends, you know, you're sitting pretty tight in that race. But if I had to pick a guy right now, Celebrini has 14 points, but I would go with, I mean, I can't assume Rizzo's going to slow down. He's going to be the leading guy on that team. I believe he's the captain. He's the captain for a reason. So, is he the captain, Rizzo, this year? I don't know. I'm kind of doubting myself now that I say that. Anyway, you get it. He's a great player, so he's dangerous. I'm going to go with Rizzo for right now. I'm going to add him to my little list. But Brad, you look like you got someone.
Oh, before the season, I think I picked Celebrini. I think I was picking him mid season last year when I was watching Chicago. I thought this guy might
picked him a long time ago.
Yeah, he might even be better than Fantilli was in Chicago the year before he came. And so I'm like, okay, well, I saw how good Fantilli was. This guy's having a better year than Fantilli for the steal. He's probably going to win Hobey. And I've been extremely high on him for a year, and he's maybe even better still than I thought he was. And that was me thinking he was already going to win the Hobey. Like the way he skates, he can shoot, he sees the ice really well. He's, UND is going to might be the only team to hold him off the scoreboard in a 2-game series all year long. I don't know how many series they play. They don't always play those out there, but I mean, he's not going to go I don't know if he'll go 2 games without a goal the rest of his college career. I mean,
Yeah, he's
he
That's
is
good.
wild.
absolutely fires the puck. I mean, that's um, he can play.
Yeah, he's been really good. He's a lot of fun to watch when we were there. We'll go into since non-conference finally begins for UND. It began last week for a couple of teams. I know Western Michigan and Omaha played, and St. Cloud State and Miami, NCC, and Denver all played. So we're the only us and Denver are the only two teams that have not opened up conference, I believe. I think who did Duluth play last weekend? They play
Minnesota.
Yeah, they play Minnesota. Okay, that's what I thought. So conference play will begin. We'll play the first road. It'll be our second road series of the year, second in a row. And this time it'll be in Duluth, which the last time we played in Duluth was uh February of 2022 when UND was able to get this sweep with Driscoll. Huge weekend, a lot of freshmen. At the time, Luke Bass had his first career goal for UND, and a lot of freshmen. Carson Albrecht had his first collegiate goal that weekend. He's now a grad student. So it's been a little while since he's been out there at Amsoil. Not really sure what to expect right now. But before we go into our prediction for this weekend, the opening weekend, we'll go into our preseason prediction for NCHC. So we'll go around and pick our first place prediction, our second place prediction, so the runner up, and then we'll each do a sleeper pick for the title. Lincoln, do you want to go first for your first place pick?
Yeah, I will. I think I'm gonna just stick with Denver for one. They kind of had, from what it looks like, they handled CC last weekend, and
I
CC is
was
supposed to
surprised
be
by
a
that too.
decent team too. So I'm keeping Denver at one. Two, I'm gonna go UND. I just think we're such a complete team this year, and I don't really need to say too much more about that. And then for my sleeper, I was kind of debating, but then I looked at I kind of like how Western's been playing recently.
Hmm.
It looks like they got their new top line replaced per usual. Not surprised there because they seem to do that every year, a new unreal top line. But I don't know. I think if Western just plays how Western plays, just that grindy hockey, and they get some big wins
Right.
in the Lawson, I think they have a chance to win it.
Yeah, I'll go next. I'd say Denver's obviously second for me. Denver is just such a it's honestly it was hard for me for them to not be number one just because you never really know. Denver is a complete team. You know, they have great scoring options. They've had great, I mean, Aiden Thompson's great defenseman, very experienced defenseman who can play a lot of minutes. Their goaltending, you know, Davis is good. I'm not sure if Davis has been playing all the games so far.
Freddie
But
has come in, and
is
they're
Davis even the
freshman.
starter now? Or
He
have
has
they been
not been.
starting?
They
Okay.
put in Freddie Halleck last week. He started, I believe, both games this weekend. Um,
He played good then. I mean,
yeah,
they only
he's
gave up
been
two
very
goals
good.
last weekend. So yeah, that makes it tough. I just I want to give respect to where I think respect is due. And I don't want to be biased. I put North Dakota at number one just because I think North Dakota is a dangerous and complete team. But I think Denver can definitely take it too. I just feel like I find it hard to believe. I think this North Dakota team really has just a really bad taste in their mouth from how last season ended. And I think they really want to chase it. They have something to fight for. I mean, Hunter Johannes said it himself on our pod earlier this summer. His dream this year is to win the Penrose Cup and hopefully win the national championship. I think a lot of the guys in the locker room share that. Obviously, everyone wants to win. No one's in their locker room wanting to lose. But I think that this team really wants to win, and I think they have all the pieces that they need to win, especially if Ledvid Person plays how he did, not necessarily last week, and not that he played bad last week. I don't think he did play bad, but he played phenomenal the weekends before. I mean, he was 3 weeks in a row running NCHC goaltender of the week, goaltender of the month in the NCHC. We knew he was going to be good coming in this year, and I think if UND can keep going on tears, played good teams so far. I think UND can go the distance. Like, but again, it's hard to say because Denver is also just such a great team. And I was, again, like you said, Lincoln, super surprised that they just, I don't even know what happened in that CC series. I was looking, CC had a decent amount of shots. Um, I just didn't think CC was gonna lose both nights by that much. I thought maybe CC was even gonna take one because I thought CC was good. And obviously, Caden Nabirko is a great goaltender. I don't know. Maybe Brad, you have some insight about what happened last weekend, or yeah, last weekend for that series. Sleeper pick. I honestly wanted to put CC. I was gonna put CC, but after last weekend, I don't know what the holes are on the team. Western's probably my second choice for sleeper, but I did want to put CC, but I just don't know how I feel about that after last weekend. But for now, I just don't think anyone's gonna win it besides UND, Denver, and if there's another team that's gonna win, I'd say it's Western, just like you, Lynx. Brad, what do you have?
Yeah. Before the season, I had Denver in North Dakota 1-2. I don't think there's a reason to change that yet. I think Denver's the favorite, especially getting all four centers back, two of their top defensemen back. There's a lot of guys returning from the team that won the league a
Right.
year ago. I do think UND has a chance. I think their big questions in the of this team, the D and the goalie, I think both have been answered in the first month, and the D has been held up well. The goaltender, I think, is to me looks like a guy you can win a national title with. I think he's been that good. Some of the saves he was making on the Celebrini one-timers where he was sliding right to left were
Good. He made a
extremely
huge save.
high-end plays, And the thing I liked about him is it didn't look like he was like desperation, out of control, flailing to make the save. They were controlled movements. He was right on them, just confidently kicked him aside. And I've been so impressed with him. So I think that gives them a chance to compete there. My sleeper before the season, I would have told you Omaha. I like their D core. I like their goaltender. And when you have a really good D and a good goalie, you can do some things. It would be hard to ignore what Western's done in the first month. They needed to get guys in the portal. They lost guys to NHL deals up front. They did not have freshmen coming in who could play top six roles at forward right away or to carry the team. Very few freshmen can carry a team offensively. Not many guys are a Blake, a Perron, a Celebrini. Like most guys are like Owen McLaughlin's a pretty high end kid, and he couldn't carry a team as a freshman, right? Like, so they go to the portal, and they did a great job. Western has scored 26 goals so far this season. 15 have come from guys they got in the portal this summer. Yeah. So, that was their question, and it seems like they're scoring at an impressive rate, which considering their turnover, and you answer that question, and that's a top 3 team right now
for sure. Yeah, I mean, even you said with Western there, they've had a lot of guys that have transfers that have come in and scored, done a lot of the scoring. You can say the same for UND as well. I mean, Garrett Pike going into last weekend was leading the team in scoring and points, and then Hunter Johannes was third. And I think it's ironic how, I mean, if you're a fan of this show and you are active on, or you do take a peek at either the Sioux forums or the Facebook groups, then some fans just complain and complain and complain, as UND fans do. I mean, as there's going to be bad fans in every group of fan base, so you got to be prepared for that. But they're out here complaining, and we got a guy from Lindenwood, or we got a guy from Alaska Fairbanks. What the heck are they doing? And now they're leading your team in points. It's ironic that those guys, what do those guys have to say now? I mean, they've been proving everybody wrong. I think Hunter Johannes, I was extremely proud of how he was playing. He came out swinging the first couple weeks. He had a bunch of good big goals, and he's got an amazing shot. I think he proved that, and a lot of his shots have been right off of rushes. And that's a guy who's going to be, I think, a pivotal down the stretch. Is a guy who can get it off the rush and score you a quick goal if you need one, especially if you're down to a team like Minnesota. He came in and tied the game. I'm pretty sure no, that was Minnesota State, I think. Yeah, so he can tie up the game for you if you need a quick one, and you need guys who can turn the tide like that.
The best way, the best question when people, I always hear like people talk about a transfer recruit, and they say something, and my first question always is, have you seen them play?
Mhm.
Like someone's, oh, why are they getting a
Right,
transfer from Alaska Fairbanks? Have you seen him play?
right,
No? Okay. Well, then, eh, like, why are you talking? Like, if you've seen them play a few times and you have no opinion, that's great. But most of these people have opinions on people they've never seen play.
right.
I think my favorite example was there was a group of fans that were really upset when UND got a recruit from out east who didn't have a glowing report at like a select festival or something like that. And
Mhm.
they were kind of melting down about this. And that why is UND going after this kid? This is, UND wasn't playing well, so of course, if the team's not playing well, they think everything's bad. So that adds fuel to it. But why
Right.
are they going after this? And a scouting buddy of mine saw this all online, and he called me and just kind of laughed. And he's like, "The kid can play. Like, I the kid can play. These fans don't know what they're talking about." But of course, they said, "Why are they going after this kid? Have any of them ever seen this kid play at a prep school out east?"
Mhm.
None of them have ever seen him play. But the people who do, you hear those opinions. Well,
Right.
the kid was Shane Pinto.
Yep.
Yeah. You told us about that the other
He won it.
time. Shane
He won
Pinto
MVP of the
is,
league as a sophomore.
yeah. Love watching
So
guys like him or guys you wish you could still have on the team. Man, I don't think I miss every second of watching that guy play here. He won I don't know if I ever saw that guy lose a face off. He was just so unbelievable. Um, well, yeah, the transfers. I mean, even watching Hunter Johannes last year when he was playing at Lindenwood, my I don't know if I've ever told you this, Brad. I think I shared this on the pod when we had Hunter on, but we were on the glass. There was a weekend where UND didn't have student tickets. So it was when over Christmas break, it was the beginning of January or January, like mid or first week of January
I
last
think
year when we were
beginning,
playing
yeah.
in Linwood. And my mom has season tickets on the glass, so I went with her and we were playing Lindenwood. And then obviously they came out swinging. I think honestly they came out swinging both games. I think they had the lead early for both games, at least one of them. And Hunter Johannes just threw a huge hit right in front of me and right in front of my mom and I. And I was like, oh, who is this guy? Who's this big guy over here? As you know, you're a fan, you're watching, and then he just lit up the net with an amazing goal. Like a couple minutes later, I was like, this guy can score too. This guy was good. And then once he went in the transfer portal, I was hoping we would get him right out of the gate, and then we had eventually did. That was really good to see. He's just a phenomenal player. Could talk about him. But so Keaton Pearson was the only guy. You saw Zamolak and Pearson went out a couple weeks ago. Pearson stayed out for the BU series. He went on the trip. I think everyone on the trip went on the trip, though. I know the rules for non-conference are different. You can go bring pretty much everybody on that. He didn't play. Is there any news for Keaton there for this weekend?
well, we're recording this on Tuesday. Brad Berry will have his press conference Wednesday, so
Tomorrow.
hoping to find out a little bit more then. But the fact that he was really close last weekend bodes well.
Good sign.
We'll see what the update is, but just the fact that he was really close a week ago usually bodes well. It was kind of like Bennett Smolik. He was really, really close against Minnesota State.
Right.
Didn't end up playing, but he was back last weekend. Um, I don't have any inside knowledge, but I would just assume if you're close,
There's a
really
good
close
chance.
one weekend, there's a good chance that he'll be available. But I'll wait to see what Brad Berry says at the press conference.
If you do have a guy who come Wednesday tomorrow, they're still not sure about it, and you come Thursday because they leave on Thursday. They take a bus to Duluth. And they leave on Thursdays. I assume they leave on Thursday. Um, and you can only take a limited amount of guys. Are you taking a guy that you might not know? Let's say Wednesday comes around tomorrow and there's like, we're he's looking decent. We're not 100% sure. Do you take a chance on a defender like Keaton Pearson, who could be or is one of the top defenders on the team? Do you take a chance on bringing him, or do you go with the safe option maybe and leave him at home and bring someone that you could maybe use?
Yeah, I think that's where Brad Berry will communicate with Mark Poolman and just see,
Hmm.
first you weigh the percentages. What are the odds he can play?
Right.
If we're talking 25%, probably doesn't bring him.
Hmm.
If we're talking 90%, probably brings him,
Right.
And the other thing you weigh too, is where do they slot in their lineup? You know, if Reese Gaber uh, is a 50-50 decision as a senior captain, and maybe a freshman D-man is a 50-50 decision, you're far more likely to take Reese Gaber because he's so impactful. If there's a freshman D-man who's in and out of the lineup, you're far less likely to bring him because Reese Gaber, even at not 100%, can be an effective player. A guy who's kind of battling to stay in the lineup now, all of a sudden he's not 100%. So you weigh all those factors.
Right.
Likelihood he can play. Uh, you know, um, so maybe how banged up the team is. If
Right.
if you have a bunch of other guys who are kind of hurt and that are game time decisions a little bit, maybe then you say, hey, we need to play it safe here because if all these guys can't go, we need bodies. So I
Right.
think those are some things you take into consideration.
Well, with that being said, we'll go into our weekend prediction here for the scores. UND at Duluth for the first time in not exactly 2 years, but it's been, since 2 seasons ago. Duluth is ranked 18th, I believe, currently. I don't know. I didn't check the polls that came out today. I think we actually no, they came out yesterday. We moved down 1 to 4. We're 4, they're 18, I believe. They lost to the Gophers at home or in Mariucci, and then they went to a shootout and won against Minnesota in Duluth. Lincoln, I'll kind of have you start out with your Friday prediction here and then your Saturday prediction. We'll go to me and then we'll end with Brad.
All right. Yeah, looking at kind of how Duluth's been playing on Fridays recently. Dropped their Friday game to Cornell, dropped it to Minnesota. They did beat Bemidji, but then they also tied Northern Michigan on a Friday. So I'm gonna go out and say I feel pretty confident that we're gonna win 4-2. I think it'll be a close game, 3-2, and then we'll get the empty netter if I had to guess. And
Hmm.
then did you want me to do my Saturday too here?
Yeah, just throw that in there.
Yeah. And Saturday, just I mean, Duluth's been they've been all right on Saturdays. Nothing kind of similar to Friday, kind of if
Right,
you depends who they're playing. But with how they did against Minnesota, I'm gonna say 3-3 tie. UND wins in a shootout.
right. Good pick. Um, Historically, when I'm trying to think about this series, Duluth UND does not go into Duluth and sleep very often. It just doesn't happen. You don't see, I mean, even in the NCHC against teams that are in the top half, you just don't see them go and get swept at home very often. I think, like you said, Lincoln, they've been playing decent on Fridays, or I just think they're a little hungry after not really getting a full regulation win. Um, the last weekend against Minnesota. So I think the usually you predict that, especially if you're at home and you're going to lose on a Friday, the Saturday night would be the closer game. I'm going to switch it up a little bit, go a little bit bold. I'm going to say UND is going to win 4-3 in overtime, but in the 3-on-3 overtime, so they're still going to get a registered win. For the record, I think they'll win on Friday. 4-3 OT. And then I really think, despite Duluth being a good team, I think UND is going to come into the next game. I think it's going to be super close in a hard fought battle, but I think UND is going to win it in regulation 3-2. And it's hard to
I
say
like that.
because
Yeah.
it might be a little stupid of me to say that because Duluth is a good team and they're going to fight hard at home. They don't want to lose, and no one wants to lose. And if it's UND playing Duluth at home and the roles are reversed, I wouldn't say UND would get swept at home. So that's why it's tough. Not the same team though, and I think Duluth has its holes. But Matthew Thiessen, their goaltender, is off of NCHC goaltender of the week. He was played good last weekend. So it's tough to say, but I'm gonna go with 4-3 OT win for UND Friday and a 3-2 win on Saturday for the second sweep in a row in Duluth. Probably the last for a little while, maybe. Brad, what's your insight here?
Yeah, I haven't really done a deep dive into my picks yet. Sometimes I do that on like a Thursday night. A couple of things that I've noticed already in weighing it is Duluth. Duluth still hasn't lost at home yet this year.
Right.
They've played 5 games at home. They have not lost at home. So they have been pretty good at home. I think they've only won once away from home. I think they won in Bemidji.
Yep.
So that kind of leads me away from picking a UND sweep. I think that
Right.
I do like the way UND's playing. I think getting Keaton Pearson back, if they do, I'm just kind of thinking that
Mm-hmm.
there's a
Wishful
reasonable
thinking.
chance that he plays. I think that helps. I think they've been playing some high level opponents, as has Minnesota Duluth.
Right.
So I like the way UND's playing. I just am thinking that going and sweeping a team that hasn't lost in their barn this year is, as you said, it's
It's
probably not the odds on
mm-hmm.
outcome. So and maybe a UND win and tie is what I'm leaning toward a little bit, but I don't know. I might have to think about that over the next few days, but that's kind of where my head is at right now. That I like the UND. I like the way they're playing. I also think sweeping a team that hasn't lost at home
Right.
could be tough,
Exactly.
but I do like the way UND has played this year. You know, the
Would you would you say a UND win Friday and then the tie would be most likely happen on the Saturday? Is that how you would put it?
Yeah, I think so.
I
That
think yeah.
seems, um, one thing, the first, you kind of said it the first, a lot of times for teams, the first 10 minutes of a Friday night game, when you're on the road and the other team's playing at home and they're fired up, it can be a challenge. And then I thought against BU on Friday, the Terriers came out pretty good in the first 8 minutes or so of that game. And then after that, UND settled in and really played well. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes. I'm curious to see it. Both teams have some new pieces this year. Minnesota Duluth does as well. So I'm curious to see some of those guys play.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see how Cole Spicer does playing against UND for the first time in the Amsoil Arena. He made the trip last year to the Ralph, which was cool to see. But with that
Luke
being said,
Bass.
yep, and
Yeah,
Bast
Luke
playing his
Bast.
first
Yeah.
series against UND in the opposite sweater in the opposite locker room. So that'll be a
Yeah.
fun angle to look at as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously it's always fun having Sandlin coach against his former alma mater and former where he started his coaching career. So that puck drop series is November 10th on Friday at 7:07 p.m. It's on NCHC TV for those who are wanting to watch, and then obviously Saturday at 6:07 p.m. on NCHC TV as well. It can be streamed. But that'll pretty much wrap up this episode of Catching Up with Brad and the Boys. Thank you to all that are listening. Make sure to check out the UND Hockey Podcast. Brad Schlossman's work on with the Herald there. Great show. I believe it comes out on Thursdays. What's the time it comes out, Brad? Thursdays at
It might be out to Wednesday. It depends.
All right.
We
Mhm.
record at different times. It comes out at some point. But
All right. Awesome. Obviously, follow Brad on Twitter for all the latest information and updates on college hockey news and UND news. I know I always look forward to reading those articles, always super fun. So also make sure to follow us on social media on our Instagram. Our link tree is usually in the bio of all of our social medias. So make sure to check that out as well. Thanks again for listening to this episode, and we'll see you guys in the next Catching Up with Brad and the Boys.